Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Books and Bytes. Today we're taking a deep dive into Fyodor Dostoevsky's final novel, The Brothers Karamazov.
Oh, yeah, one of the greats.
It's a book that's both sweeping and intimate, dealing with huge questions of faith, doubt, morality, and free will, all within the context of a very messy family drama.
You put it perfectly. It's a book that can really grab you by the collar and pull you into its world.
Okay, so before we get lost in the philosophical depths, can you give us a quick overview of the story and the key themes Dostoevsky is grappling with?
Absolutely. At its heart, The Brothers Karamazov is about a dysfunctional family, the Karamazovs, headed by the lecherous and irresponsible Fyodor Pavlovich.
Oh yeah, he's a real piece of work.
He is. He has three sons: Dmitri, the passionate and impulsive eldest; Ivan, the intellectual and cynical middle son; and Alyosha, the youngest, known for his devoutness and compassion.
So quite a mix of personalities there.
Yeah, you could say that. The novel revolves around the murder of Fyodor Pavlovich and the subsequent trial of Dmitri. But it's much more than just a whodunit. Dostoevsky uses the crime as a springboard to explore the inner lives of these characters, their struggles with faith, morality, and the search for meaning in a chaotic world.
So it's a family drama, a murder mystery, and a philosophical exploration all rolled into one. No wonder it's considered a masterpiece.
Exactly. And it's the way Dostoevsky weaves those elements together, the psychological depth he brings to each character, that makes it so compelling.
All right, let's dive into the story itself. How does Dostoevsky introduce us to this chaotic world of the Karamazovs?
He starts by painting a vivid, almost grotesque, picture of the father, Fyodor Pavlovich. We learn about his debauchery, his neglect of his sons, his almost comical obsession with women. Dostoevsky wants us to understand, right from the start, what kind of man we're dealing with.
It's interesting how he uses humor to portray such a despicable character. Like that scene where Fyodor Pavlovich is told about the death of his first wife, and his immediate reaction is to go on a drinking binge. It's both horrifying and darkly funny.
That's Dostoevsky's genius. He doesn't shy away from the ugliness of human nature, but he also finds a way to make us laugh at it, to see the absurdity of it all.
And this dysfunctional father sets the stage for the three brothers, each of whom represents a different response to his upbringing.
Exactly. Dmitri, the eldest, is the most obviously scarred by his father's neglect. He's passionate, impulsive, prone to outbursts of anger and violence. He's almost a caricature of masculinity, a man driven by his desires and resentments.
And he's immediately set up as a suspect in the murder, right? With his history of conflict with his father and his desperate need for money.
Absolutely. Dostoevsky wants us to suspect Dmitri, to see him as the most likely culprit. But as the novel unfolds, we begin to see the complexities beneath the surface. Dmitri might be impulsive and violent, but he's also capable of great love, deep remorse, and a yearning for redemption.
And then there's Ivan, the middle son. He's a much more cerebral character, right? An intellectual wrestling with the big questions of existence.
Yes. Ivan represents the intellectual and spiritual crisis of his time. He's an atheist who rejects traditional morality, arguing that if God does not exist, everything is permitted. He's a fascinating character because he embodies the dangers of nihilism, the idea that life has no inherent meaning or purpose.
His Grand Inquisitor chapter is one of the most famous passages in the novel, isn't it? Where he imagines a conversation between Christ and the Grand Inquisitor.
Yes.
Who argues that freedom is a burden that most people can't handle.
Exactly. It's a brilliant and disturbing exploration of the nature of faith, freedom, and the human need for authority. It raises profound questions about the role of religion in society and the limits of human reason.
And then we have Alyosha, the youngest brother, who's almost the antithesis of Ivan. He's a devout and novice monk, known for his compassion and his belief in the power of love.
Alyosha represents the possibility of faith and goodness, in a world that often seems devoid of both. He's not naive or simplistic, though. He too experiences doubt and suffering, but he ultimately chooses to believe in a higher power, in the potential for human beings to transcend their baser instincts.
So we have these three brothers, each representing a different aspect of human nature, each struggling with their own demons. And at the center of it all is the murder of their father, which sets in motion a chain of events that will test their beliefs and force them to confront the darkness within themselves.
That's a great way to put it. The murder is both a literal crime and a symbolic act, representing the breaking apart of the family and the unleashing of the darker forces within each character.
It's fascinating how Dostoevsky sets up this dynamic so early in the novel. We get these glimpses into the past, these hints of resentment and rivalry between the brothers, and then the murder explodes like a bomb, shattering any semblance of stability.
And from there, the story becomes a psychological thriller, a courtroom drama, and a philosophical inquiry all at once. Dostoevsky keeps us guessing, not just about who committed the crime, but about the deeper motives, the hidden desires, the moral dilemmas that drive each character.
And then there are the women in their lives. They play such a crucial role in the story, both as objects of desire and as catalysts for conflict.
Absolutely. You have Grushenka, the captivating and enigmatic woman who becomes the object of both Dmitri and Fyodor Pavlovich's affections. She's a complex character, a mix of sensuality, independence, and manipulation. She represents the destructive power of passion and the allure of forbidden love.
And then there's Katerina Ivanovna, Dmitri's former fiancée, who's caught in a complicated web of duty, pride, and unrequited love.
Katerina is a fascinating study in contrasts. She's intelligent, strong-willed, and fiercely independent. Yet she's also deeply insecure and driven by a desire for control. Her relationship with Dmitri is a volatile mix of passion, jealousy, and resentment, and it plays a key role in the events leading up to the murder.
So we have a cast of characters who are deeply flawed, driven by powerful emotions, and caught in a web of complex relationships. And on top of all that, Dostoevsky throws in these huge philosophical questions about the nature of good and evil, the existence of God, and the meaning of life.
It's a lot to digest, but that's part of what makes it such a rewarding read. Dostoevsky doesn't give us easy answers. He challenges us to think deeply, to wrestle with these questions ourselves, to confront the darkness and the light that exists within us all.
I think we've laid some great groundwork here. We've met the main players, we've gotten a sense of the central conflicts, and we started to touch on some of the big themes that Dostoevsky's exploring.
And we've only just begun to scratch the surface. There's so much more to discover as we delve deeper into this extraordinary novel.
Well, I can't wait to continue our deep dive into the Brothers Karamazov.
Me too. Picking up where we left off, one of the most intriguing aspects of the Brothers Karamazov is how Dostoevsky masterfully ratchets up the tension leading to Fyodor Pavlovich's murder.
You're right about the tension. It's like a pot simmering on the stove. You just know it's going to boil over. But Dostoevsky is a master at making us wait for that eruption.
He does it through a series of confrontations and encounters, each revealing deeper layers of resentment and animosity within the Karamazov family.
Like that pivotal scene where Fyodor Pavlovich visits the monastery with his sons.
Yeah.
That whole encounter felt like a powder keg waiting to explode.
Absolutely. It brings all the key players together in a charged atmosphere. Fyodor Pavlovich is, at his worst, mocking the elder Zosima and flaunting his relationship with Grushenka, which further fuels Dmitri's already burning jealousy.
I remember Dmitri leaping up, shouting about how his father just wants a scandal. You could feel the raw anger and humiliation pouring out of him.
Dostoevsky really captures Dmitri's deep-seated resentment towards his father in that moment. It's clear that Dmitri feels cheated and disregarded, and his pursuit of Grushenka becomes entangled with his need to defy his father.
And meanwhile, you have Ivan observing everything with his detached cynicism. He doesn't subscribe to traditional morality, so he almost seems amused by the whole spectacle.
Ivan's perspective is so crucial here because he's not bound by conventional notions of right and wrong. He sees the hypocrisy and absurdity of the situation, and it makes us question our own judgments about the characters.
And then there's Alyosha caught in the middle, trying to mediate between his brothers and their father while upholding Zosima's teachings. But you get the sense that he's becoming increasingly powerless to stop the inevitable conflict.
That's right. Alyosha represents a kind of moral compass, but he's also very young and still finding his way. His struggle to reconcile his faith with the darkness he witnesses within his own family is one of the most compelling aspects of the novel.
And then, as if things weren't already tense enough, Zosima dies.
Zosima's death acts as a catalyst. It removes a key source of moral guidance for Alyosha and further fuels the conflict between the brothers, particularly for Dmitri.
Dmitri's downward spiral after Zosima's death is heartbreaking. He becomes increasingly isolated and consumed by his obsession with Grushenka, making reckless decisions fueled by jealousy and despair.
Dostoevsky really excels at portraying the complexities of Dmitri's character. He's capable of great love and tenderness, but also prone to fits of rage and self-destruction.
And speaking of complex characters, we can't forget Grushenka. Her relationship with Dmitri is so passionate and volatile, but we never quite know what her true motives are.
Grushenka is one of the most enigmatic figures in the novel. She's clearly drawn to Dmitri, but she's also a survivor, someone who's learned to use her charm and wit to navigate a world dominated by men.
It creates this incredible tension because we're constantly questioning whether she genuinely loves Dmitri or if she's manipulating him for her own gain.
Exactly. And that ambiguity is what makes her such a fascinating and memorable character.
And then, of course, the simmering pot finally boils over. Fyodor Pavlovich is murdered, and all signs point to Dmitri.
The murder itself is a turning point in the novel. It shatters the already fragile stability of the Karamazov family and sets in motion a chain of events that will have profound consequences for each of the brothers.
It's interesting how Dostoevsky doesn't dwell on the graphic details of the crime. Instead, he shifts his focus to the psychological fallout, the way the murder exposes the hidden depths of each character.
That's what makes the Brothers Karamazov so much more than a typical murder mystery. Dostoevsky isn't just interested in who committed the crime. He wants to explore the moral and philosophical implications of violence, the way it ripples outward affecting everyone involved.
And the investigation itself becomes a kind of psychological dissection. We see Dmitri desperately trying to prove his innocence, Ivan wrestling with his conscience, and Smerdyakov lurking in the shadows, his role in the crime becoming increasingly suspect.
Dostoevsky masterfully uses the investigation to delve deeper into the psyche of each character. He peels back the layers, revealing their hidden motives, their secret desires, and the often contradictory impulses that drive their actions.
It's like he's saying that even in the face of a brutal crime, there's no easy answer, no simple judgment to be made.
Exactly. He's challenging us to look beyond the surface, to understand the complexities of human nature, and to recognize that even the most seemingly despicable act can have a multitude of underlying causes.
And this leads us, of course, to one of the most compelling sections of the novel, the trial of Dmitri Karamazov.
The trial becomes a stage for Dostoevsky to explore themes of justice, guilt, and the limitations of human perception. He masterfully presents both the prosecution and the defense, forcing us to weigh the evidence and question our own assumptions about truth and objectivity.
It's like a play within a play, with each character playing their assigned role, yet also revealing their true selves through their words and actions.
Exactly. And at the center of it all is Dmitri, caught in a web of circumstance and his own internal turmoil, desperately hoping for exoneration, but also increasingly aware of the weight of his past transgressions.
His inner struggle really highlights the theme of spiritual redemption that runs throughout the novel. Even if he's found innocent of the murder, he still needs to confront his own demons and seek forgiveness for the harm he's caused.
Right. It raises the question of whether true redemption is even possible in a world so full of suffering and injustice.
And then there's Ivan's explosive testimony, where he confesses his nihilistic beliefs and essentially throws the entire case into chaos.
Ivan's testimony is a pivotal moment in the trial. It reveals the depths of his despair and the way his intellectual attachment has led him to a place of moral nihilism.
It's like his own philosophy is turned against him, revealing the abyss that lies beneath the surface of his intellectual arrogance.
It's a powerful indictment of the dangers of intellectualism, divorced from compassion, and a reminder that ideas have consequences.
And it's fascinating how Dostoevsky juxtaposes Ivan's intellectual rebellion with Smerdyakov's cunning and resentment. They both reject traditional morality, but for very different reasons.
That's such a great point. Ivan's rebellion is rooted in his intellectual struggle with the problem of suffering, while Smerdyakov's stems from his sense of social marginalization and his resentment towards the Karamazov family.
It's like Dostoevsky is showing us that the rejection of moral norms can take many forms, from lofty philosophical ideas to cold, calculated acts of revenge.
And it makes us question the very nature of morality itself. Is it something innate, something divinely ordained? Or is it simply a construct of society that can be discarded when it no longer serves our purposes?
Wow, those are some heavy questions. And we're still not even at the verdict of the trial. There's so much more to unpack.
Dostoevsky doesn't give us easy answers. He keeps pushing us to confront the complexities of human nature and the enduring mysteries of faith, morality, and the search for meaning.
This is turning into one of those deep dives where I wish we had twice the time.
I know what you mean. But we've covered a lot of ground, and I think we've laid a solid foundation for understanding the key themes and conflicts at play in the Brothers Karamazov.
I'm ready to see how it all plays out, but for now we'll have to take a pause.
Let's pick up right where we left off in part 3 of our Brothers Karamazov exploration.
We left off with Dmitri's trial hanging in the balance, and Ivan wrestling with the consequences of his nihilistic beliefs. Where do we go from here?
Well, even after Ivan's dramatic testimony and exit, the trial isn't over. Fyodor, Dmitri's defense attorney, delivers a masterful closing argument. It's like watching a verbal chess game, as he weaves together a narrative that challenges the prosecution's case. and appeals directly to the jury's emotions.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how he manages to portray Dmitri as both a passionate sinner and a fundamentally good-hearted man, capable of terrible mistakes, but not cold-blooded murder.
Katyukevich understands that a good defense is about more than just presenting facts. It's about crafting a compelling story. That resonates with the jury on a human level.
Right, he plays on their sympathies and even their prejudices, highlighting Dmitri's love for Grushenka, his impulsive nature, and the wrongs he suffered at the hands of his father.
He even manages to turn Dmitri's love for the poet Schiller into evidence of his good character, arguing that someone who appreciates beauty and art couldn't possibly be a heartless monster.
It's a brilliant rhetorical strategy, even if it feels a bit absurd at times. And then he delivers that knockout punch. Better acquit 10 guilty men than punish one innocent man. It's a classic appeal to the principle of justice, and it leaves the jury with a profound moral dilemma.
Exactly.
Right.
He forces them to confront the possibility of making a terrible mistake, condemning an innocent man, and that doubt, that seed of uncertainty, lingers even as they deliver their verdict.
So what is the verdict? What fate awaits Dmitri after such a gripping trial?
Despite Fetyukovich's eloquent defense, the jury ultimately finds Dmitri guilty. It's a testament to the power of circumstantial evidence and the way our perceptions can be swayed by prejudice and preconceived notions.
It's almost as if Dostoevsky is suggesting that even in a court of law, true justice can be elusive. The system is flawed. Human judgment is fallible. And sometimes the truth remains buried beneath layers of interpretation.
And while Dmitri may be legally guilty, there's a deeper spiritual guilt that he carries, regardless of the verdict. He's guilty of his past transgressions, his mistreatment of others, and the darkness that resides within him.
So the trial becomes a catalyst for him to confront that guilt and embark on a path toward redemption.
Precisely. Dmitri's sentence to hard labor in Siberia becomes a kind of symbolic purgatory where he can suffer for his sins and hopefully emerge transformed.
And what about Ivan? How does he cope with the weight of his nihilistic philosophy and the unraveling of his family?
Ivan's story takes a darker turn. His mental state deteriorates rapidly as he's tormented by hallucinations, and the specter is Smerdyakov, who represents the logical endpoint of his own nihilistic beliefs.
It's as if Ivan's own philosophy has come back to haunt him, revealing the abyss that lies beneath his intellectual detachment.
His descent into madness serves as a stark warning about the dangers of nihilism and the way it can lead to despair and self-destruction.
And then there's Alyosha. He represents a flicker of hope in this bleak landscape, right?
Alyosha's faith is tested throughout the novel, but it never completely wavers. He continues to believe in the power of love, compassion, and the possibility of redemption, even in the face of overwhelming suffering.
Yeah, he really does. He becomes a kind of anchor for the other characters, representing a path towards spiritual wholeness and inner peace.
But even Alyosha's path isn't without its challenges. He faces moments of doubt and despair, and he grapples with the same fundamental questions about the meaning of life and the existence of God that torment his brothers.
So how does it all end? Does Dostoevsky offer any resolution to these profound questions?
The Brothers Karamazov isn't a novel that offers easy answers or neatly tied up endings. It leaves us with a sense of ambiguity and unresolved questions. Dmitri is sentenced to Siberia, but there's a glimmer of hope that he might find redemption through suffering. Ivan's fate is more uncertain, as he teeters on the brink of madness, and Alyosha continues on his spiritual journey, carrying the wisdom of Zosima and the hope for a better future.
It's not a traditionally happy ending, but it's not entirely bleak either. There's a sense that even in the midst of tragedy and suffering, there's still a possibility for growth, transformation, and the enduring power of the human spirit.
And that's the brilliance of Dostoevsky. He doesn't shy away from the complexities of life, the darkness and the light, the questions that have haunted humanity for centuries. He forces us to confront these complexities head-on, to wrestle with our own beliefs, and to search for meaning in a world that often seems chaotic and absurd.
The Brothers Karamazov is a book that stays with you long after you finish reading it. It's a profound exploration of the human condition, and a testament to the enduring power of literature to challenge, inspire, and transform us.
And it's a book that continues to resonate today, speaking to our deepest fears, hopes, and the timeless questions that we all grapple with.
Well, this has been an incredibly thought-provoking deep dive. It's left me with a lot to ponder and renewed appreciation for Dostoevsky's genius.
I agree. It's been a privilege to explore this masterpiece with you.
To our listeners, we encourage you to delve into the Brothers Karamazov and experience its power for yourselves. Be prepared for a challenging, but ultimately rewarding journey into the depths of the human soul.
Until next time.